Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're starting loose powder week. I couldn't be more excited. You guys seem to really enjoy foundation week. So I thought, what other category is a good candidate for like an all-day wear test? And I personally have completely fallen down like a loose powder rabbit hole. So I've recently purchased quite a few loose powders just to play around with and test, since this is kind of a newish category for me. I had played around with a few way back in the day and just decided it wasn't for me, that it looked excuse me, that it looked a little bit too thick and heavy on my skin, and since then always stuck to pressed powders. Well, I've discovered loose powders largely in part to you guys, all of your recommendations, thank you so much, and also in part to some new tools that have come into my life. I think I wasn't using the right tools previously. So anyway, we're going to kick off this week with the relatively new Marc Jacobs Finish Line Perfecting Coconut Setting Powder. And much like my foundation week, some of these powders are going to be like a first impression wear test. Some of them are going to be like a second, third, fourth type of impression, and that's what this Marc Jacobs Finish Line Setting Powder is. I have used this a couple of times, and I have some thoughts not fully formed, so I thought we would go ahead and start with this one. So if you're interested in my application and full day wear test for this Marc Jacobs powder, then just keep on watching. I purchased this Marc Jacobs setting powder off of the Sephora site. I bought it during the VIB sale. It is regularly priced at $44, and I purchased it along with a few of the other summer products that came out from Marc Jacobs, part of that coconut collection. And I wanted to do a video dedicated to those products, but I wasn't that excited about the eyeshadow palette. It was just, you know, it's pretty to look at, but I don't know, for me, it just sort of fell flat. So since I started to do this loose powder week, I thought, why don't I just talk about this guy? So this makes a few claims. It is supposed to set your makeup for 8 hours. It has like cocoa butter and I think coconut oil in there. So it's supposed to be a very kind of creamy powder. So I'm assuming it's not supposed to make your skin look very dry at all. And it is supposed to be invisible. So this is the color number 34. Invisible, so it's supposed to be completely colorless. It's not supposed to be translucent or anything. So it's supposed to have like a soft matte finish and be completely invisible. So why don't I go ahead and open this up. Here is the packaging. I love this Marc Jacobs packaging. It's a little kitschy looking. It's always kind of like mod, late 60s, early 70s looking. Here is the powder. So the cap has like a little stopper there, and then the powder has that mesh center, which I'm a big fan of. So I'm not going to swatch any of these powders. I just feel like that would be a little silly unless there is something maybe special about it. I think I do have some powders coming up that have like a little bit of sparkle in there, and if the camera can catch it, I will definitely swatch those. But this one is a matte one. I'll just show you what it looks like on my finger. I don't know if that helps. So because I've played with this powder, I know that this powder, for me, because I've used it a few different ways, is a much better setting powder versus finishing powder. And I'm sure all of you know the difference, but a setting powder is something that you use to actually set your makeup down. So for me, it's something that I like to use after foundation and concealer, or I guess any kind of like wet product that you want to make sure kind of stays put. A finishing powder is sort of a last step where you want to give your entire makeup look a finish, whether that is a matte finish, whether that is a glowy kind of iridescent finish, whether it's a pearly finish, all those sorts of things. So this for me worked better as a setting powder versus a finishing powder. So that's how I'm going to use it today. In terms of finishing powder, I thought it was too matte. That is not generally the makeup look that I like to go for. But in terms of setting powder, I do like a matte powder. I just feel like it creates a nice canvas for the rest of my makeup. And I always feel like it just sets my makeup down nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a brush on one side and a powder puff on the other, and we'll take a look and see if there are any differences. So I've tried a couple of different brushes with this powder. I've tried the Sonia G Face One brush with this powder. Very, very nice because I like the buffing action of this brush, and you guys have seen me use this quite a bit. And I've also liked the La Mer powder brush. This brush for me lays the powder down really nicely, and it buffs very, very gently. It doesn't have as much of a buffing action as this Sony G Face 1 brush. But this is very, very nice if I'm just kind of lightly setting my makeup and I don't really need to work the powder in too much. So for my powder side, I'm going to go in with the La Mer brush, and I'm just going to tap it into the container here. With powder, I definitely, I guess with most makeup products, I really like to go in light because you can always build up. It's like cooking. You can always add, but very, very difficult to take away. So I'm going to knock off whatever excess I have. So I have just a little bit left here. So I'll use the brush on this side of my face, the right side of my face. And I always kind of generally start around my eyes. So I'm just going to press the powder around my eye, get a little bit more powder, and then press that onto the rest of my face. And then once I feel like I have a nice layer, I'm just going to go ahead and work it in a little bit. But I like getting that layer down before I start this action. Otherwise, I feel like I'm moving the foundation underneath. So there you can see immediately how mattified this side looks compared to this side. And I should mention that I have the Clé de Peau, the foundation down, along with the Clé de Peau concealer down around my eyes. I do think the powder is very, very weightless. And when I touch my face, I don't feel any tackiness. So I do feel like it's done a good job setting down my makeup. I don't see any kind of transfer on my fingers. And I will zoom you in here and just show you that it hasn't clung or done anything weird to my problem areas, which would be like my forehead, around my nose here, and my chin, kind of jawline area. I think it looks pretty good there. Also, let's zoom in around the eye area here. I don't think it looks particularly dry there. But again, I feel like it's done a good job setting down. I don't feel any tackiness. So on this side, let's go ahead and use a powder puff. I have the big Esom powder puff here, and it's really nice. It's nice and squishy. I'm gonna go in and just sort of tap the brush into the netting here. See if I can pick some up. Looks like I've got quite a bit. And then what I'm gonna do is sort of do the press and roll technique. Shake off any excess there and do that to the rest of my face. So here it is with the powder puff application with the kind of press and roll technique, and this side is with the brush. I feel like this side is much more matte. I think using a puff ends up laying down a lot more product, but I still think it looks very nice. I don't feel like it has emphasized any lines, any dry spots. I have a lot of kind of eczema, scars, and weird texture over here. I don't think it's emphasized any of that. And same as the other side, I feel like it has set down the makeup nicely. I don't feel any tackiness. I don't see any strange clinginess around my nose. I don't really see any emphasis or dryness under here, under my eyes. So all in all, I like both applications, but I think if you want something really, really light, maybe if you have dry skin like me and your concern is over powdering, then maybe I would go with a brush, because I think there's a higher possibility of a heavier coverage with the powder puff. All right, so I'm gonna go off camera and kind of finish the rest of my makeup. I'm gonna keep my makeup very, very light because I don't want a lot of other kind of powder products to interfere with whatever's going on. So I'm probably only gonna put on like a little bit of blush, some lip gloss, and maybe some eye stuff. So I'll be right back. All right, so I just threw on some blush here and some eyeliner, some brow gel, lip gloss, and that's it. Again, I really wanted to make sure that we were seeing what the powder was doing and not any other product. So I kind of also like just focused my blush like right here, so we could see what the powder was doing kind of like around my eyes and everything. So it's only been about 15 minutes and everything still looks pretty good. I don't feel like my skin feels dry. It definitely does not feel dry at all. It definitely doesn't feel like I'm wearing like powder on my face. I really dislike the feeling of powder, so that makes me very happy. And I don't feel like it's doing anything strange. So I'll be back hopefully in like 3 or 4 hours to do a check-in. I have to run a whole bunch of errands and hopefully I'll make it back in that time frame. So anyway, I will see you guys soon. Hey guys, I am sitting in my car. I'm actually waiting for my husband. He's getting his car maintenanced. And anyway, we've got the dog here. Do you want to say hi? Fuzzy Butters, you want to say hi? Say hi? No? Nothing? You got nothing. Anyway, so I thought I would do a quick little check-in. It has been about a couple of hours, so not too long. It's about noon, and I started a little bit late this morning at like 10, and just wanted to give you like a natural light view of this powder. I'm thinking it looks pretty good. The only kind of minor issue I'm having is like right here on my like forehead. I feel like it's doing that weird, like it's picking up my peach fuzz kind of a thing. I hope you guys can see that. So it's looking a little kind of cakey up top here. And I also noticed something when I turned off my filming lights and I was like, all right, let's get on with my day. I noticed that I felt like this powder, even though it's supposed to be invisible, I felt like it lightened up the color of my foundation a little bit. So I did want to make note of that. I don't know if you can see it here. But it just seemed to kind of cast a white kind of veil over my skin. So I don't know. I don't think it's that invisible. Well, I'm curious to hear if you guys can actually see it, especially now that we're in daylight. I'm trying to face the window here. It's a little awkward. Anyway, so far so good in terms of dryness. I don't think that it's emphasizing anything underneath my eyes. I don't feel like it's doing any weird caking up around my nose. Just that minor kind of weird issue on my forehead. So anyway, that is it. Maybe I'll do another check-in in a couple of hours. If not, I will see you at the end of the day around the 8-hour mark. Bye. Hey guys, I am sitting down a little bit early. It is 5:30. I've had this on since 10 o'clock, so it's been about 7.5 hours. It's been quite the day since I last checked in with you when I was at the, where was I? Oh, at the car place. Anyway, we took little Miss Fuzzy Butters to the dog park, and there was a little patch of mud, which we were all trying to avoid. Like all the furry baby parents were trying to avoid this mud patch. Well, my little girl decided to lay in it, and as I walked over to get her out, she rolled in the mud patch. So I've had to rush her home, have a muddy dog all over me in the car, and yeah, and give her a bath. So anyway, I need to shower now, so I was like, let me just film this final check-in and give you my final thoughts on this powder after 7.5 hours. It's been a long 7.5 hours, so I think we can call it 8 hours. So anyway, I just sat down, turned on the camera. I haven't even actually looked at myself. So, let's see. Well, I have to say, I definitely look a little bit more glowy than I did when I first applied it, obviously, and even at my first check-in, which was only 2 hours in. There's definitely a little bit of glow coming in, but I think it's looking pretty much the same. I have like a little bit of that forehead issue that I had 2 hours in, where I felt like it was looking a little bit like it was catching on to my dry spots here, or that it was kind of like caking up like a little bit, but I think actually my perspiration may have helped with that, which is, I don't know if you guys can see that, which is pretty amazing. I think my under eye looks a lot better on this side than it does on this side. So this side was the powder puff side. This was the side with a slightly heavier, a thicker application, and I think that did not help the under eye situation. Not really a surprise, but my under eye over here I think looks very good. My concealer looks like it's in place. The powder looks like it really did its job over here. So on the oiliest part of my face, which is basically my nose, chin area here, it looks a little, like a tiny bit cakier than when I first put it on. It just looks like it's done like a little something. I can't say that it's noticeable like if you were talking to me. It's only upon like super close inspection, like I'm staring at myself in the mirror, do I notice that it is looking a little textured here. I will say that I think the powder is pretty much gone from my nose area. My nose is pretty shiny, so there's none left. And around my nostrils, it looks like it's kind of like separating a little bit. I hope you guys can see that. I will zoom in, But if you can't see it, take my word for it, like right around the crevice of my nostrils here, it looks like it's kind of just separating and looking a little like patchy. Cakey is too strong of a word, but it just looks like, you know, you can see the powder basically around my nostrils. So all in all, I think that this is a very, very good powder. I think it lasted pretty well through kind of a rough day, rough environmental day where I was kind of in and out, air conditioning, sunshine, a lot of heat. I was sweating a bit. So I think it did a good job kind of withstanding all of those changes. I will also say that I like the lighter application with the brush. The powder puff side I think is just a little bit too heavy-handed for this particular powder. I don't think you need that much. I think a lighter hand is definitely better for this particular powder. And in terms of my like trouble spots, I just told you about the oilier area over here. I reviewed the area up on my forehead. And this is just, I would say, very typical of most of the powders that I've used. I kind of get just a little bit of texture up there on the forehead. So I'm not going to hold it against this particular powder, but I do expect it to do just a little bit better around my nose area and my chin area. I don't actually mind if it's just gone, you know, like my oils have just eaten through it or whatever and it disappears. But what I don't like is when it starts to look like it's just kind of like being eaten away, and I don't like this caking up. I would rather it just sort of disappear than look like it's like funky on my chin. So that is probably my only issues, is the area around my nostril and my chin. So that's it for today's video. That is it for day 1 of Loose Powder Week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for day 2 of Loose Powder Week. Subscribe before you leave. I would love that. And I'll see you in my next video.